Peace and welcome to the culture right here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in this afternoon. Folks, we got a lot to talk about today. As first, we're going to talk about what happened last night with the Senate race that has made history, where Democrat Raphael Warnock has won the runoff election. And the implications of it, we're going to be checking in with our culture crew member, Suzette Speaks, to get her analysis on the situation. Also, let's talk a little bit about what's going on with the Trump organization, how two of the Trump companies are in jeopardy, and because of fraud based on an investigation. We'll talk a little bit about how that may play on the former president's next run to be president of the United States. Also, I got to talk about what Keke Palmer has been discussing about makeup and beauty. We say beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but she's been getting some harsh criticism, and she responds to that criticism, which opens up this conversation. We have that and a whole lot more. So stay with us. It's all happening on today's edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. All right, folks, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for joining us and being a part of the conversation here. We got a lot to talk about, so let's jump right into it as we're going to be checking in with our culture crew member today, Suzette Speaks. Suzette is an attorney. She's also the host, a television host, podcast host. She's doing phenomenal work down in Florida. And so we're always happy to have her. She is our latest and our newest voice here on the culture. And we're just happy to have her on to give us her expertise and her analysis. Now, she's not the only one we want to hear from. We want to make sure that you join us in a conversation. So get ready to jump in the chat as we are streaming on all platforms right now: YouTube, Facebook, blackstarnetwork.com, and all platforms. And we want to hear directly from you as you share your thoughts about the conversations that we are having. All right, let's bring my sister in, Suzette Speaks. Suzette, good afternoon. How you feeling today?
Oh, I got Georgia on my mind.
Georgia on the mind.
Let me tell you, I'm a little tired because I stayed up to watch the election results from the U.S. Senate run. I was up. I could not sleep.
I should have been blowing up your phone last night, then, Suzette. I should have been like, Suzette, what you think?
PMing me. They were like, you can sleep now. You know, democracy lives to see another day due to the result of the Honorable Senator Raphael Warnock pulling out a victory, a very close victory, which we can talk about.
Let me tell you something. If sports fans can understand this analogy, last night's election was like a Baltimore Ravens game.
Oh, really? Tell me. I don't watch football
it always
like that.
Comes down to the wire.
Okay.
The final play, you just sitting there. It was probably like the Monday night game with Tom Brady and them. They just pull it out in the last few seconds. You're like, bro, is this going to really happen?
It felt like that. It honestly did. And it was a few, there were a few lead changes actually as the counting came in from the southern counties in Georgia, as well as shout out to Fulton County, to Cobb County. Thank you, Atlanta. Thank you, Black voters, for helping sustain a win for Senator Warnock. It was quite amazing. I think there was a lot of sentiment across social media, first and foremost, about how close this race was and how 1.6 ballpark million people voted for his opponent. When it shocked many of us that he was, so successful in garnering this much support. It also says a lot about the discipline of Republican voters. They're not really concerned with who. They're voting team. They're playing team ball, if we could stay with the sports analogies. They are looking at the full chessboard and saying, we wanted that extra vote in the U.S. Senate, make it more difficult for President Biden's agenda, for example, in passing federal judges and other things that the Senate are responsible for. They wanted to make sure the numbers kind of stay with that 50-50 and having to go to Vice President Kamala Harris for the tiebreak. But thank God, Georgia, I can't sing, but Georgia, I am grateful to you today so that we can celebrate what I think is an honest victory for the state. Although I'm a Floridian, as was mentioned, we had all eyes on Georgia because it seemed as if you guys have been voting more than any other state in the last 2 years. Reverend Senator Raphael Warnock has run successful campaigns 4 straight, starting in 2020. And I'm just happy to see that he was victorious, although the margins were almost too slim for comfort.
Let me tell you, that's what he mentioned last night, that this was a collection of campaigns that he had to run in order to get to this point. And I, I'm gonna share with you just a couple of takeaways that really stuck out for a lot of people, especially for like the New York Times and some of the other big media spaces. But for me, as much as I'm happy that this was a victory, I put this analogy out there yesterday on Twitter, and it's like I feel like Jon Snow. If you are a Game of Thrones fan, you understand this analogy. I feel like Jon Snow, that you watch us, you're like, oh no, the battle's over, but like Jon Snow, he always saw the White Walkers on the horizon. You know what I mean?
And he was gonna come back like Jesus.
He tried his hardest to prepare everybody else. And they're like, no, they're not a problem. That's not it. He's like, nope, I'm seeing something.
Yes.
And I'm gonna say, I think I'm seeing something on the horizon, Suzette, where we cannot. And I think that this is because of traditionally, when we see close elections, we often interpret it as a mandate. And it's not. It's really not a mandate. Raphael Warnock is going to have a job on his hands to be the senator for the state of Georgia. It is not like a clean sweep. It is not a situation where people are saying, yes, we definitely want to turn the state of Georgia blue. He is going to, probably his own constituents are going to be battling with him, right?
Yeah.
They're going to probably launch campaigns for some of the smaller offices, but much more pivotal when you're talking about like judges or state prosecutors in some of these areas, right? County executives and all of these things. But it is not a mandate. So you praise the victory, but then you also know in the back of your mind, there's a lot of disgruntled people that did not want me in this role that are present. And I think really quickly, and I'm definitely want to get your take on this, Suzette, that I don't know if the Democrats have handled that level of pressure before. Because Joe Biden has set the tone when he first got into office that he is going to be the great uniter, quote unquote, for the rest of the country after that, contentious 2020 election. But I don't know if that is the case now. Like if Democrats can lean on that message when you have close races like this right now.
Well, I think we have to look at Georgia with a long view, right? Georgia is still a predominantly Southern state in terms of its politics, and it is not red, it is not blue, it is quite purple. And that is because of the growth of places like the Atlanta suburbs and the bigger cities, where I think over 30 years, there's been from 1 million people in terms of population to almost 7 million people now living in the metro Atlanta area. So we always, and I know I love hanging out in Atlanta, we look at Atlanta and we see Chocolate City and we see successful Black people and businesses, but we can't forget there is a really strong political faction in Southern Georgia, which is counties right across the Florida border that a lot of predominantly white farmer family or agricultural based folk, how they make their money is through the land, really dominate. And I think sometimes we tend to forget because we visit the big city that the state is quite diverse. And shout out to Senator Warnock for spending time with those voters. He's from Savannah. He is from Southern Georgia. So hearing their concerns and their plight. And I think what he did miraculously was bring a lot of more moderate conservatives very small amount, but enough over to his side, who said, you know what, either stay home, and some of them did. They did not come out again for the runoff. Folks who had initially supported Herschel Walker and saw him as a palatable, I'm sorry, just enough, could tolerate him just enough alternative. But I think that we have to be very cautious when we celebrate this as a victory. I'll share a little quote I watched last night. I think it's former Republican Chairman Michael Steele, Republican Party chairman, said, don't forget that if this had been a different candidate, we might have a different election result. And I think it was just
he's talking about Herschel?
Yes. That the way this vote turned out, the Republicans just fielded someone who was just, I mean, you had to hold your nose and vote for him. I would call him unqualified. Again, he has so many wonderful attributes as an athlete. And I believe, like, you know, his storied career and his college career is amazing. But he was not equipped to do what he was called to do, which is to serve the people in the United States Senate. All these gaffes, all these kind of side distractions with his personal life. No one is perfect. I'm not here to judge Herschel Walker's personal life. However, voters were very, very put off by it, particularly Black voters. When we looked at him, we saw someone who was not, prepared enough. And for some of us, it felt like a slap in the face to field this type of candidate in 2022 was kind of to call Black people a joke. And to say, you know, this is what we think of you as far as the Republican Party goes. So I know there was the closeness is something that is very, very shocking to some, but it's not to me. It's still Georgia. And thank God for organizers such as a Stacey Abrams and others who have been doing the work to register people. Again, population has led to demographic shifts as well in politics. So there's a fighting chance for Democrats, but Democrats have a heck of a lot of work, as you pointed out, to do to sustain this seat 6 years from now.
Let me tell you, you said fighting chance, and guess what, folks? I'm going to say it about the Republicans and the GOP. There's a fighting chance that they could get that seat back if they put a much more qualified and competent candidate before the voters. And Tiana, you posted this, and I'm going to second it. You said we need to regroup and gear up for 2024 because winter is coming.
Yes.
Going back to that Game of Thrones analogy, winter is coming.
We can't.
You see what I'm saying? Like, we got the victory on this, but winter is really coming, and I think that speaks volumes about where we are. Suzette, we're going to take a quick pause. When we come forward, we're going to continue the conversations. I want to share with you what some of the other big takeaways from last night's Senate runoff race were, and so of course get your thoughts on the situation. So stay with us. We've got a lot to talk about. You're tuned into The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind $100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
Folks, we have been talking about what happened last night with the big Senate runoff race that took place in Georgia, where Democrat Reverend Raphael Warnock had beaten his Republican challenger, former NFL superstar Herschel Walker, to become the next senator for the state of Georgia in a very close race. Now, even though Raphael Warnock was able to pull out the win, he was able to do some to make sure that his ground game. And I'm sure as once more information about the voters and who voted during the early voting session comes out, we're going to see that there may be a significant chunk of those votes that he was able to get. The fact remains there's still a lot of work to be done because literally over 1.5 million people still supported his Republican challenger in spite of everything. I'm gonna just say it like that. In spite of everything. So we are at a very, very critical place, not just in statewide politics, but we're at a very, very critical place in terms of democracy in our country. And we've been checking in with attorney and TV host, our newest Culture Crew member and newest voice here on the culture, Suzette Speaks, doing phenomenal work down in Florida, keeping up with what's happening down in Florida just as much as she's keeping her eyes on what's going on around the country. Suzette, I want to share with you and our audience just some things that I came across in the reporting of yesterday's nail biter.
Yeah. It's crazy, but it was huge. This came out of USA Today. This is a couple of big takeaways that they saw with this Senate runoff race. Take a look. They said, after a hard-fought campaign, or should I say campaigns, it is my honor to utter the four most powerful words ever spoken in a democracy. The people have spoken. This is what the new Senator Warnock said yesterday or last night. His victory makes him the first Black senator elected to a full 6-year term in Georgia history. Now, what does it mean? It means that Warnock's win solidified a cycle in which Democrats defied history by defending every incumbent Senate seat, a first for the party in power since 1934. What impact will it make on the Senate? Well, with his being elected, with Senator Warnock being in now, a 51-49 majority will likely mean little in terms of policy goals, given the Republicans took back the House, but it will be significant in terms of judicial appointments and other key confirmations for the next 2 years. The other part of it is high voter turnout broke fatigue talk. The Georgia Secretary of State's office said Tuesday that roughly 3.3 million people voted in total, either through absentee ballot, early voting in person, or on election day. So it still had a good number of people that have come out. But what do you make, Suzette, of this point that USA Today brought up in terms of defying, basically point out that the Democrats were able to kind of fend off Republican takeovers over incumbent states, the first time they've done this since 1934. This is and I always say politics is warfare, right? So when we look at that type of stronghold, it would give the indication that the Democratic Party, today's Democratic Party, might be stronger than any other Democratic Party we've had in years. But do you think that is the case? I think that this shows what happens when you field good, relatable, qualified candidates like a Maxwell Frost from here in Central Florida, like a Raphael Warnock and a John Ossoff and others who around the country prove that the quality of the candidate matters less than the star power. And I think what the Republicans suffered from, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, depending on where you stand on the issues, is that there was this kind of shadow of the former president that had still been cast over the election and selection of candidates. Many of the candidates that we saw lose were handpicked by former President Trump, Herschel Walker being one of them. So this idea that celebrity, pardon the pun, trumps all other qualifications.
No, you said that right.
You know how that goes, and making this kind of I don't know, it's a pop culture popularity more so name recognition election shows that voters really care about actual issues. Senator Warnock had been on the front lines in terms of issues that affected everyday, for example, Atlantans. There's a big issue right now with hospital closures in Georgia. He has worked with local officials on those issues that, again, everyday kitchen table issues that people care about.
Yeah.
He was, not new to this. And he's also very relatable. If you've ever heard him speak, I had one pleasure of listening to him live. He commands that room. He is an impressive scholar, PhD. And again, I think has the acumen, the intellect, and just the political prowess to hold his own with any other United States senator or candidate. So I think the quality of the field says a lot when it comes to who was more successful than others. But it still remains, and I just kind of want to backtrack a little bit, that there is some work that has to be done in terms of grassroots organization. This is going to be a clarion call, a wake-up call for Republicans in terms of what they have been saying, which has backfired about early vote. They need to actually tap into their base. And when it comes to early vote and absentee voting, things that they have tried to, quite frankly, outlaw and make much more difficult. So to see a Georgia electorate, a body of voters come out in spite of a shortened early voting period and all these other new election laws and really deterrents, some would call them, to try to limit when and how people can vote, to have this type of turnout in spite of that says there's a lot of fervor down in Georgia. I am looking at President Biden's proposal of the new primary schedule when it comes to electing presidents. We know in the past it always has started with Iowa. Shout out to Iowa. Right? They gave people wins like Barack Obama. They, in spite of their electorate and their voting body being predominantly very white, right? Probably the least diverse state in the union. They've held that position as the first primary election, or caucuses as they had, for so many years, almost 30 years. So President Biden has suggested, wait a minute, maybe we need to start in places that are a little bit more diverse, like a South Carolina, like a Georgia, putting them before Las Vegas or New Hampshire or Iowa. And there's a lot of discussion that needs to be had around that, because there is a lot of fervor, as we have seen in Georgia, among the Democrats' base of voters that is predominantly working class, African-American, and youth voters. So if we are going to have a discussion about who should pick the president, these states have to be talked about in terms of now who gets to go first. Now, again, that switches the conversation, because it's going to take a lot more money to run in a South Carolina. You might not have a Barack Obama if we started in South Carolina, because you can do the door-to-door. You can do the handshake retail politics in a place like Iowa without a lot of money. You just need to be on that ground. So it will change a lot of different factors, but thank goodness we can see that when we vote, we win. And I think that was a theme that has been said among organizers there on the ground in Georgia. But there is a lot of fervor. Black people are not asleep, right? When something matters to us like this, or when there is an affront to us, like fielding of a candidate like Herschel Walker, oh no, we're going to show up and we're going to show out and we're going to vote.
Absolutely. Let me go to some of our online culture crew members who have a lot to say. A lot of people are just thinking the high heavens.
That's how I was.
Everybody's thinking the high heavens.
I was singing like Ray Charles, like, Georgia.
There is a God.
I was singing, calling my cousins in Atlanta, trust and
there
believe.
Is a God.
The WhatsApp
God of
group.
justice.
Man, it could have been a different story. It could have.
Let me tell you. Sophia, you checked in. My sister Sophia, always good to hear from you. You said people should be regrouping by volunteering and or donating into the Black Voters Matter and or Poor People's Campaign and or the Black Star Network. You got all them black organizations. Black Voters Matter with Cliff Albright and the great folks over there. Of course, Poor People's Campaign with Reverend William Barber, and of course with the work that we're doing here at BSN. You're absolutely right, Sophia. That's why we love you and appreciate you, because you bring it right back to us. Absolutely. Brenda, you checked in. Brenda Nelson, you said Warnock's race was a moment of reflection. The struggle continues to be real. Isn't that the truth? That is the truth. And look, we can't forget about the struggle. We cannot forget about it. Lana, thank you, Brenda. Lana, you checked in, my sister. You said they see us as clowns. Y'all better quit playing. Both parties, y'all better quit playing.
Oh boy.
We got work to do. Black Oreos are losing across the board. Ouch.
All right, now, sis. All right.
Except for Tim Scott.
Wow.
Except for Tim Scott. But yeah, a lot of work to do, Lana. Thank you so much, sis. Shalinda, you checked in and said, look, I went to sleep with a big grin, thanking the Most High. Trump organization found guilty of 17 counts, and Walker losing was everything. Yep. I guess Walker is going to need a Walker after that. But let me stop being.
Regroup.
Nicole, check it in. Shalinda, thank you so much. Nicole, you said this is why there shouldn't be reaching out to the other side. We must gear up to protect the rights and freedoms we have and want in the future. Also, democracy is always on the ballot. Right. And Nicole, I appreciate you for saying that, because people are acting like when the president said it, like that was something new. Democracy is on the ballot. Every time a joker runs, democracy is on the ballot. Now more than ever we see it. But yes, democracy is always on the ballot. Look, let me just tell y'all, folks, and Nicole, I know you probably already know this. Democracy, if you listen to the terminology, is an experiment. It's not foolproof. It's not without its flaws. It's an experiment. And we have heard political leaders say the American experiment. This is an experiment. No country has run government the way that America has run the government in this type of manner. Now, this is a mashup of things, right? That under the banner of democracy, and we don't have to get into the history of it all, but this has always been an experiment. So there is some very big concerns, and the Democrat Party still has to ask the question. And I know, Suzette, we're going to probably have to explore this down the road. But now this was the last race of the political season. We got to look at 2024.
Absolutely.
Who's coming up next? What do the Democrat Party? And I'm sure after last night's wins, today the call started, okay, now we got to figure out who's the candidate for 2024. Who can we put it out there?
We have to start early.
We got to start doing it. On our side of things, very quickly, it comes down to organizing. Okay, what does that mean? If we're talking about a quote-unquote black agenda, quote-unquote black strategy, if we're talking about having any type of strategy that includes the voices and the concerns of oppressed people in this country, what does that actually mean? Does the Democrat Party have what it takes to speak to those concerns and those needs at this point? I mean, we got a lot of big conversations. So this, in the big scheme of things, it's a necessary part of the conversation, but it's still a small part of the discussion where we have to face it. Suzette, we got like 30 seconds. What's your take?
I just wanted to point out another win for the Democrats is that our Vice President, Kamala Harris, is going to have to spend less time being the tiebreaker. Thank goodness. When we have Senator Sinema and a Senator Manchin, we know how much pressure there has been for her to always remain close by so that she can be the tie-breaking vote in a 50-50 Senate. Now that we have 51 to 49, I hope it will free her up a little bit to focus a little bit more on her portfolio. I think there are some things that we want her to be doing. I think that she has not necessarily had that opportunity to kind of spread her wings, being much more involved in Senate business. But I think now this is also a victory for her indirectly to allow her to take on other projects and parts of her portfolio that we need to see her active in.
Let me make sure. Absolutely. Well, folks, we got to take another pause. When we come forward, let's talk about somebody else that people often don't like to talk about, which is former President Donald Trump, and how his businesses have now been seen as being as practicing fraudulent activities as a result of a lot of different things. But are we surprised? Are you really surprised that the Trump organization has been engaged in fraudulent activity? No, I'm not surprised. But we'll talk about it. We'll get our take from our attorney, Suzette Speaks, and of course from you. And so stay with us. A lot to talk about around that situation. You're tuned into The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We wanted to switch gears now, having a different conversation about a different Republican, somebody that Suzette has a lot of love for. He was the former president of the United States. Donald Trump now has been, even though he hasn't been implicated in this latest legal issue, but his company is under great scrutiny. And I'm talking about the Trump Organization. How the Trump Organization was found guilty of multiple charges of practicing fraudulent activity as a result of the situation of their business. Take a look at this. This is the report here. Trump Organization found guilty on all counts of criminal tax fraud. It was reported that, take a look, folks. It was reported that 2 Trump Organization companies guilty on multiple charges of criminal tax fraud, falsifying business records connected to a 15-year scheme to defraud tax authorities by failing to report and pay taxes on compensation for top executives. Now, the Trump Corps and Trump Payroll Corps were found guilty on all charges they faced. The Trump Organization, could face a maximum of $1.6 million in fines when sentenced in mid-January. The company is not at risk of being dismantled because there is no mechanism under New York law that would dissolve the company. However, a felony conviction could impact its ability to do business or obtain loans or contracts. Let's bring Suzette back into the conversation.
There's so much here.
This sounds like a legal slap on the wrist.
Yes.
And let me just say, this sounds like legal bull.
We have so much going on with this story. Oh my!
What is this, Suzette? You're an attorney. This is what you do.
Yes, I thought about this. How do I break it down for my folks so that we are all on the same page as to what happened here? Because no individual, save the Trump Organization CFO, Alan Weisselberg, has been charged. He's the one that gave the information. He's the one that provided all of the receipts, if you will, when it comes to what happened over the last 15 years. So in summary, there was a Manhattan district attorney, Mr. Alvin Bragg, an attorney who happens to be an African-American man, did an amazing job with this case in trying to piece together one of the several different ways in which the Trump Organization allegedly has committed tax fraud. So if you're like me, you've been watching all this news about Trump being investigated since he has left office. And if you're like me, you were probably tired and was waiting on something that finally happened. Well, here's one of the many cases that are open, or should I say investigations that are open right now. So to be clear, Trump himself has not been found guilty of anything or been in any way given culpability. Although in this particular case brought in New York, right? This was the Manhattan District Attorney. He was allowed to bring up Trump's name during the trial, during opening and closing arguments, saying that the former president, in fact, did have knowledge in the running of the organization. Now, what was the crime? Well, apparently, based on the facts of the case, there had been many of the executives of the organization that were receiving perks instead of being compensated with income. So long story short, instead of you getting a paycheck so that you can pay for your child's daycare or your expensive school or your Manhattan apartment, they had the company pay directly for these perks and areas of compensation, which is illegal, right? You can't have your company write off. This is a thing, something specific to an individual, like a school fee for a child.
Right.
So instead of giving the person or the top executives the actual compensation, the actual money, and them going out and purchasing the apartment and them going out and purchasing their child's education and therefore being taxed on it, this was a loophole in which they were trying to use the corporation's dollars to pay for these additional methods of compensation.
All right, Suzette. You broke that down. Excellent. I can see why you're an attorney.
But
part of me is like, who cares? That sounds more internal. Man, look, man, look. You mean to tell me? I cannot believe. And this is the thing. This is why, folks, when y'all read the news, right? And I have to even do the same thing. When we read the news, right? You got to look past the headline. You got to actually read the story, because what this story initially came out as, oh my gosh, this might be an indictment against Trump himself, for one, or oh my gosh, they're about to take the Trump organization and completely abolish it, for two. Nope. Oh my gosh, the penalty and the cost of this thing is going to be, they're going to have to pay like $25 trillion.
Nope. No, it is so much in terms of like the expectation of the public. There's so much of a difference between the expectation of the public and what is actually happening in this particular case. Now, mind you, there are several open investigations going on from the United States House, January 6th committee, the Attorney General of New York. Letitia James is also doing her own investigation of Trump and his children and their organizations in terms of what they have claimed as far as their business in New York. There's almost like maybe 6 or 7 different investigations going on. So I can understand why people are like, finally, we got him. Oh, wait, we didn't. So what I want to point out is part of this case, the origins of this case are founded in what we are calling, or what we call in legal circles, corporate personhood doctrine, right? There was a case that came before the Supreme Court, maybe about 12, 13 years ago now, called Citizens United. This was a huge landmark case that gave companies, corporations, the same rights as individuals, as people, right? But we know corporations are not people. They cannot vote. That's one right that they don't have. But they can do almost anything else. They can enter into contracts. They can buy and sell property. They can donate to political campaigns. They can own assets. So many parts of corporations are now protected as free speech. So this was a case in which the corporation, because the witness, Mr. Weisselberg, was not willing to go as far as to say that Mr. Trump or other members of the corporate board knew what was going on, the Trump organization tried to paint him as a rogue employee. And really, it seems to me that he fell on his sword. He wasn't going to snitch, if you will. And again, the facts
that's the problem,
have not proved out. But the district attorney, Mr. Bragg, did as much as he could with the facts that he had, right? The witness statements. What does the record show in terms of tax and accounting? He's the CFO. He's the person that handles the books. So at least he might face about 5 months or so for giving his testimony and for being cooperative in finding some culpability with the organization. I think there is a win. But the way our laws are set up, again, we have to address this in Congress. I know Senator Bernie Sanders for years, Elizabeth Warren for years have been talking about, why are we giving corporations the same rights as people? They're not people. There are people within these organizations that are making the decisions. Walmart didn't bring the price up. Somebody who sits at the CEO's desk or the CFO's desk made the decisions to bring the price up. When we're talking even in our everyday culture about a company did that, it's people within the company that did these things. However, with the current legal framework that we have right now in terms of making a corporation the same as an individual with a lot of the individual rights that a person has, personhood, as has been, like I said, fought against by many. You know, Bernie Sanders has always said we need another amendment to the Constitution to prevent this, that it was never intended by our framers to give corporate entities the same rights as individuals, as human beings. But that's what they currently have, thanks to our U.S. Supreme Court. So with the evidence, with the facts that he was presented with, Mr. Bragg has found 2 individual corporations guilty, as well as culpability with Mr. Weisselberg. Right, but not Mr. Trump or anybody else, unfortunately.
And that's the part. I mean, we got like a minute before we take our next pause, but that's the part right there that I'm trying to just like wrap my head around. And one of our Culture Crew watchers, PJ, he puts it right there. This is PJ. You put my sentiment in your statement. You say, how is the former guy's corporation is guilty, but he isn't, because he has fall guys to take his place, who he will probably deny even knowing.
This is the rub. I'm not going to disagree with.
PJ, you hit it on the head, sir.
Yes, but we have, again, this corporate veil. That's why many have a problem with it. The human beings in the corporation are the actual people that are making these decisions, who have knowledge of, who tend to promote this behavior, whether legal or illegal. Again, whether a corporation is legally a person is the question. You and I know there are very, very big difference between a human being and how a human being operates. And I may be on the side of more of a Bernie Sanders, where I don't know if there should be an amendment to the Constitution, but I do think it needs to be revisited by Congress in terms of the legal landscape, giving corporate structures this much power. The corporate veil is what we call it. That protection, that wall that says, oh no, it's not the human beings that run it. It's the corporation as an entity that is guilty. So again, I'm not saying I agree or disagree with our Culture Crew member, but that's the way the law is set up, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on your opinion.
That is exactly the way law is set up. And until we do change those laws, Teflon Don might still be standing today. All right, folks, look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's jump out of politics and let's jump into some more cultural conversations. Keke Palmer, the Nope actress who has been now everywhere, can be seen everywhere, has been under great criticism because of the way she looks. She responds, but it opens up the question, is beauty truly in the eye of the beholder? And what do we make about the standard of beauty in 2022? We'll have that conversation. Also, I want to share with talk about this situation with Ava Duvernay, how she's making ice cream history, but more importantly, why we should really consider conscious selling and conscious buying. We'll have that conversation as well. So stay with us. A lot to get to in the next hour of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen shots.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, welcome to the second hour of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if this is your first time watching the show, welcome, welcome, welcome. Hopefully you've been enjoying the conversations that we have and that we continue to have, as this is the space and the platform where we have discussions about issues affecting Black America, but more importantly, not just affecting Black America, but the impact they make on the rest of the country, as we look at everything from politics and health and well-being, and even most importantly, culture. Culture has played a huge part in dictating how people think and how people act. And so there needs to be more discussion about making sure that our culture is in alignment with what we say we believe and our values. But we appreciate you for tuning in this afternoon. Make sure y'all check us out at blackstarnetwork.com, where you can get all the latest news and information. We're streaming a lot of great content. We're streaming what happened last night in Georgia, where Brother Roland was doing his reporting work, as he was doing the blackest election show coverage in the country of Georgia, in the country about Georgia. So make sure y'all tune in for that and hear what Black elected officials down in that part of the country had to say about last night's victory with Raphael Warnock over Herschel Walker, and so much more. Also, make sure you follow us at blackstarnetwork.com. You can follow us on our Twitter and IG page. And also, while you're there, make sure you hit me up. You can follow me on Twitter and IG. I'm on Twitter at Farajii, on my IG at The Real Farajii, and let's continue to build this movement. All right, folks, let me just shift gears a little bit. We got my sister, Suzette Speaks, who's TV host. She's an attorney, and she is one of our newest culture crew members here on the show. We're happy to have her. She brings a lot of great insight into a number of different discussions. But I wanted to share, I wanted to kind of key in on, I want to bring Suzette back into the conversation here. Suzette, I wanted to talk about this whole situation with Keke Palmer, who has been having a phenomenal year, especially because of her role that she played in Jordan Peele's film Nope. With Daniel Kaluuya, and now she's like everywhere. Here in LA, you see signs of Keke Palmer everywhere. She's got this show coming. I'm like, okay, Keke Palmer. She hosted Saturday Night Live. She just announced that she's pregnant. She showed her little baby bump. People are just kind of like, she is everywhere right now. But then that doesn't come with its downfalls, where the number of people, and she has said this, Suzette, and I think this is crazy, but I think it warrants a conversation. A number of people have been criticizing Keke because of how she looks. Now, if you did not know, and I want to make sure that I'm saying this correctly, Keke, as beautiful as she is, as fun as she is, she does have a skin disorder. She has a medical condition called polycystic ovary syndrome. And this is a syndrome that has attacked her, how she described. Let me just put it up there. Let's put it up there what Keke has to say to some of the latest criticisms, where people have literally called this woman ugly, folks. But she says, look, I really want y'all to get the help y'all need, because makeup isn't real. You can't cover your ugliness with makeup. That's what she was kind of going at. She said that I'm beautiful in real life because of who I am, not what I look like. She said, I wish I could bottle how I feel about myself and sell it. She's also said, because some people take comments to heart and these people just say anything, truly it's insane to say anyone is ugly, but especially me. Polycystic ovary syndrome has been attacking me from the inside out my entire life, and I had no idea. She said, ever since I had shown my acne scars and just my struggle with acne, I saw a lot of comments following that post because people were looking at my makeup coverage and how I was able to camouflage and hide my scars. I've been dealing with acne, struggling with makeup, and trying to cover it for a long time. I don't think there's any shame in it. First and foremost, let me just keep this real, Suzette. There are some people that are not as attractive. I'm not going to use the term ugly, but they're not as attractive to other people. But this is all subjective, right? Like, what's attractive to you may not be attractive to me. But to call somebody ugly, to say, oh my gosh, what happened to your face? Because I follow Keke on social media. She will post videos of her without makeup. And we all know, like she said, she has this syndrome. She has really, really bad acne. She said that she has tried getting medical help. She has tried to get cosmetic surgery. She has said she has been taking in more water. She's changed her diet and what she ate.
That can't help it.
None of this stuff has been serving as solution. So let's talk a little bit about this standard of beauty and this expectation, and more importantly, like people feel like they have the right to call somebody ugly. And then what that does and where we are in our culture with this. What's your take on this?
Yeah, when I saw this story, it made my heart very sad because I think sometimes we get behind a computer screen and people just feel like they can say whatever they want to, the meanest thing that, they can think of and put it on a comment, etc. But I think we can use this story and put a positive spin on it by first and foremost bringing some awareness to polycystic ovary syndrome, which is very common, more common than you would think among Black people, Black women, people of color. So I want first and foremost to ask specifically our ladies who are watching, who have not been to their OB or their gynecological appointments, to ask about this, because oftentimes you will see symptoms like the ones that Keke has, which is very deep acne scars. If you know the cystic acne, that deep tissue acne, those almost like a boil, it hurts, so much pain is brought to you by having cysts on your ovary. So it's actually gynecological disorder that can be treated with sometimes hormone replacement, but it doesn't work for everyone, right? And you might not want to take birth control, and you might not want to mess with your hormones the way you might have to in order to kind of regain what a doctor would call balance. But you also can have excessive hair growth on your face, on your back, on your body. You can have excessive weight around your waist as well, tenderness in your bosom and your breasts. They're all awful symptoms of this disorder that many women have unknowingly. So if you think you might have something where your body's not functioning the way it should be, you can ask to get tested about this. Oftentimes we have to be our biggest advocates when we go to the doctor, especially women taking our own personal health in our hands. We have to speak up. So first and foremost, we're going to use this as a bullhorn to go and get tested and make sure you're keeping up with your annuals and your mammograms, and as well as you can ask about polycystic ovary syndrome. It's a real thing. So she has talked about this for years. When I first saw her, I was shocked. I will say the way her makeup is always done and laid, when she showed her bare face.
Her face be beat, Suzette.
Yes. I mean,
her face be beat.
This, I mean, we remember her from Akilah and the Bee. We just
right.
Girl, and of course, when your hormones change, all of a sudden you're fighting acne. She said, and I'll paraphrase in interviews given about this, that there were TV producers and such, filmmakers that would be like, hey, here goes some Proactive. Hey, you could try this. And she's like, no, like she didn't know at first, which is so heartbreaking. For years and years, they thought she was eating candy and eating fast food and all this and doing this to herself. No. It's cysts appearing on her ovary, which are affecting her hormone levels, which are causing your, signals to be sent to say, hey, skin, do this. Hey, body, do this. And we don't have any control of that. So when someone has this kind of ongoing chronic illness, and we're seeing a society that has become less sensitive and downright mean, oftentimes, to want to quote call people out about their skin. She can't fix her skin.
She can't fix
it. Being bold. There's a lot of people living with all types of debilitating diseases that we don't know nothing about. So you see me and you know this much of my life, But you think that because you on the internet or because I'm a public figure, you would just comment and say whatever. You don't know her. You don't know her struggle. You don't know her complete story. And thank God she was brought up in a way that imbibed her. I mean, with my big words today, right? Gave her the confidence to know that your self-worth doesn't just come from all of this here. Yes, we want people to look good and therefore feel good. But sometimes, baby, you may not have the externalities that society say that you should have. And guess what? You still got to love yourself. So shout out to her in being that kind of example and that beacon of hope of, listen, I have had the most amazing career. I have been in tons of movies, TV shows, specials. She stayed booked and busy with her cystic acne, and she's moved on, and she doesn't kind of quantify her worth based on this, and neither should we. So I think we have to take a look at ourselves. I'm sorry if I sound like a poster child for love yourself from within, but this society now is making it much more difficult, especially from your young girls. And I wear makeup. Listen, I won't come on here without my face powdered, okay? They say you got to put a little paint on the front door, and I'm going to put my paint on, right? However, you have to learn to love you in this really, really kind of brash society that feels like they need to tell you when she know what's going on with her skin. Do you? So if we can kind of mind our business and look at her as a human being first, we'd be much further as a culture.
That is exactly the point. The point is that people feel like first celebrities aren't human beings, right? So we and this is the disservice that we have created on ourselves for ourselves, right?
They should be perfect.
We have put celebrities in that position of being a perfection. We have raised them to put them on the pedestal. So therefore, we think just because we support their lifestyle, we own them.
Right.
We have a right or have agency over every element of their life, their body, their how they do their work, and all of that stuff. Right. It's one thing to be critical of somebody's professional achievements or how they do the work. But it's another thing to just be downright just disgusting and mean to talk bad about someone. And look, I'm assuming that some of these people, I know without a shadow of a doubt, some of these people are FUD ugly. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's like that extra ugly. You know what I'm saying?
Talking with the man in the mirror. Listen,
like I know you really are super ugly.
And calm it down. Instead of her focused on her pregnancy and that wonderful announcement that she just made, 29 years old, career is popping and having the most amazing, last 5 years of her life. She is, and even beyond, since she was a child, and she has to now take time out of her life to be addressing people who are talking about her skin disease. Where is our empathy? Where's our intelligence? We have to understand that, again, this is medical. This is something we're so used to being able to fix and change everything in, especially the Western culture. People all over this planet live with some debilitating diseases, and folks who are having like mental and physical challenges are not like hidden away and never seen in public spaces. No, there are cultures where out in the open, people live with all kinds of, I'm talking about major physical deformities and have to live their life and go about their business. And honestly, in a lot of other cultures around the world, they're more accepting or even more tolerant. Except, of course, that children and all kinds of people can be rude and distasteful and disgraceful, really. But in our Western society, when we have created this unhealthy standard of beauty that everybody has to have smooth skin, everybody ain't born like that. Everybody has to have this almost Eurocentric look. Everybody ain't born like that. We got to widen the ability to accept ourselves, Black folk, as well as push others to accept. Listen, there are various shades and types of beauty that we come in, and we have to be embracing of all of them.
Right. And that's the thing, like understanding it. And here's why I think it's important for us to have this conversation, not just from the medical standpoint, because Keke has been talking about this for so long. You don't even need to keep explaining yourself to a joker, right? For a situation, they can just go look up. Same thing. It made me think of when I was reading this story, Suzette. It made me think of Jada Pinkett Smith
with alopecia
and how she struggled with alopecia, right? And how even after the Chris Rock thing and Will thing, but just more importantly, just having an understanding about certain things. We can go back as far as Michael Jackson, vitiligo, and the issues that he has had as a result of that, and how he had to, it took him a long time to accept, to see the beauty of himself as a result of that. I mean, there's a number of things. So it's you made the point. We're in a culture where people just don't have empathy, especially on social media.
Yeah. Because
you're behind a screen, you're behind a phone. But if we looked into your life, your shit be falling apart. You know what I'm saying?
Man, the haters always gonna be there though. They're gonna be there. Some people cannot be happy for you. Some people want to bring you down to size. It is a part of our culture now. This kind of like snap back. And
see, that's what I hate about social media, because I sometimes get into it with people. I'm like, you know what? I'm not even having this on Twitter, because, bro, I don't know what you like. Like, I've been blessed in so many ways.
Yeah.
That I don't know. I don't want to even. We don't have enough time to tell you how much I've been blessed. Yeah. But at this point, it's like we're just so mean-spirited
and petty.
And I think the standard of beauty piece is something that we need to discuss, especially for Black girls who struggle, man. Like, who struggle. And let me add that. We should talk about it with Black boys. I remember I went to school with a couple of guys darker than me, Suzette. And I remember them talking about the struggle, because Black folks, we say it to other Black folk, boy, you look like you came from Africa. You look like you came from the jungle. Look how dark you are. We make all these little jokes. And I'm like, man, that was mean. Yeah. Now, when you look back on it, you're like, damn, that was mean.
And it sticks with you. It sticks in your mind. As an adult, you wonder if it impacts you. And it obviously,
and we say the stuff like, oh, this shouldn't stick with you. Sticks and stones shall break. No. Words matter, man.
Absolutely.
Words matter. Like, if somebody were to talk about your mom, you get punched in the face.
Yeah. If Keke Palmer listened to the haters, she wouldn't be as successful as she is. And I'm just grateful that she's trying to at least give people hope by saying that even if this does happen to you, you can rise above it. There are so many times that, again, what celebrities have to deal with in this current modern day, celebrity culture, where everyone has access via a keyboard and a comment section. A lot of them turn off their comment section. I've noticed that with like Black Panther actor Letitia Wright, and they'll let a few comments in and they'll shut it down. Because who are you to comment on what my life is like? You have no idea.
Hey, look, I see Beyonce go through the same thing.
Yeah, she said, don't read them. I think she said, hey, don't read them if you don't.
Yeah, Beyonce go through the same thing. And you know what? To some people, you're never going to be enough.
Right. Or they got to bring you down to size. They want to cut you down.
And that's what it comes down to. You're never going to be enough. And as Black folks, I realize, and we got to take a quick pause, but that's one of the big things that I think as Black people, we all struggle with, right? Internally, because of our history in this country, because of the experiences of slavery, because we're always having the back of our mind. And then folks, y'all tell me if I'm wrong. So y'all post your comments on this. That Black people, we have always struggled of never being enough, whether we're never being enough for our families, never being enough in our workspaces, never being enough in our relationships, we're never being enough that seem to be enough by the world. This bothers us. This eats at us. And every day we got to do affirmations. We got to do prayers. We got to go through therapy, because somewhere down the line,
we have to validate one another. We have to validate one another.
Mm-hmm. All right, look, don't get me started.
Sorry. I know where I had to break, but I had to get that in there. It's like we need to help one another feel good about ourselves and believe in one another.
That's what it is. And the worst thing that you can tell a person, it's one thing to tell a person something crazy about themselves. It's another thing to tell a person something crazy about themselves, and it's coming from people that you're supposed to protect you, supposed to accept you, and to love you. That's a whole different level of hurt and trauma. Look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation with Suzette. I want to get your take on this as well, folks. So post your comments. But let's talk a little bit about the standard of beauty and Black folks not feeling that they are enough. I'm talking about for both men and women. We'll have that conversation up next. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now We have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. Folks, we've been talking about the response that Keke Palmer has given to a number of critics about the way she looks, her ugly. They're calling her ugly. And she has said it time and time again, and she had to reiterate that her face, the acne that she has been suffering from, is a direct result from a condition called polycystic ovary syndrome, a condition that has basically attacked her ovaries from the inside and has caused her to her face and her skin to be to have all types of issues with acne and other types of reactions. Now look at this. She said makeup isn't real. She addressing these comments because I don't care how much makeup you have. The end result is you still who you are. And we have not in our culture gotten past the fact that it's more than just the way you look on the outside. It's really about who you are on the inside. And this is something that I think that we need to key in on. But then there's another point that I want us to key in on. This idea that we aren't enough, that as powerful, as successful as Keke Palmer is, she put it out there, folks, recently. She's been in over 100 movies, productions, TV, film. She's done all of these things. She's been acting for years. And there's still some who say that she's not enough in some way, shape, or form, right? That the place that she's at right now in her career, the place that she's at in her life, she's quote unquote not worthy. Let's bring back New Culture crew member Suzette Speaks, TV host, attorney, as we've been talking about this and the standard of beauty. But it's ever present that we aren't, that a person is not enough, and it's really sad.
There's something about this, I think, that is gender specific, because even though we have men who may have physical attributes that are what the public square would deem to be less desirable, there's a special criticism that is levied towards women when it comes to physical beauty. And I think, unfortunately, especially in Hollywood, there's this added pressure, this defining of one by European beauty standards that a lot of people of color, Black people in specific, have to deal with, not only from Hollywood execs and leadership and members of that community, but from us. And we have to be much more cognizant. And again, I will say the public square has become a lot more negative with the advent of social media. So it's not just Black people doing that, all over in all kinds of cultures. People are just saying whatever, especially in the West. But we have to be very careful as individuals to be more cognizant of what we're doing when we are commenting and when we are sharing negativity when it comes to physical beauty of Blackness. I know I've done shows. I do my own YouTube show, y'all, and I've done shows on.
Go ahead, tell them what it is.
Out there, shameless plug. Y'all can support me, please.
Shameless. Go ahead, Suzette.
On YouTube as Suzette Speaks, all platforms, Suzette Speaks, especially on YouTube. I'm trying to grow my channel, y'all. So I appreciate any support you can offer. Come over and subscribe and check me out. But nonetheless, I've done shows about this kind of, one size fits all, literally standard of beauty. We talked about the health implications in Lizzo's case, etc. But yet and still, we have to make room for people to feel comfortable in their bodies as they are. Sometimes people just need to feel that sense of, I am a human being. I am making my way through this world with bumps on my face, with scars on my neck, with hair where it's not supposed to be, with all kinds of stuff, small calves, little this, little that, all these things that we make so much out of that really don't give us an indication of a person's intrinsic value. The idea that she, quote, does not deserve what she has because of acne scarring.
Right.
As if a woman or a human being is limited to this, insignificant piece of, physical imperfection, as if that is a justification of belittling her, of saying that she's not a good person. I think we have lost our way when it comes to thinking about how we are promoting people and whether we're looking in a substantive way, in a real way, whether it's in politics, whether it's in Hollywood, across our culture, at evaluating people, or are we stuck on this, externalized beauty? And again, we have had a long history of mental slavery in our country, where Blackness is shunned, where imperfection among Black people is ridiculed and shunned. And we've lived through that reality of having to be better, having to look better. We spend more on beauty products. We spend a lot more on straightening our hair and doing all kinds of things to meet this Western standard of beauty. But it's up to us if we want to see the culture change. Thank you, people who have been trying to file for the Crown Act and other ways in which we can have legitimate, self-expression, just the way our hair grows out of our head.
See, hey, Suzette, here's the crazy part. That we are even in the space where we need legislation to just express ourselves.
Exactly. It's sad.
You know what I'm saying?
It's eye-opening how far we've come, but how far we have to go. Yeah. People can fire you because they don't like your locks.
And that's what I'm saying, and it's like, and people, our culture, and I'm saying for Black folks, Black culture has been taken, has been massaged. People have used it for their convenient purposes and all of that. But you really don't know the real struggle of a Black man or a Black woman in this country, where just your simple expression of how you wear your hair has to have a legislative policy to force people to recognize how you wear your hair.
Exactly. So imagine,
now, I don't know any other group of people.
Yes.
I don't know any other group of people, and I could be wrong on this, but I don't know any other group of people that has to have that level that's under that level of scrutiny in this country. You don't have, and here's the thing. Here's the other thing. If there are groups of people that have had to undergo that level of scrutiny, guess who were the trailblazers for that?
Exactly.
We were.
Exactly.
You see what I'm saying? And so when we talking about what does it mean to be Black, like we should say, maybe we need to say, well, what is the Black standard of beauty in this country? What is the standard of beauty that Black America should have about men, about women, about boys, girls? Like, what is our standard of beauty? Because you're right, we all know that our standard of beauty comes from it comes from a Eurocentric context, a Eurocentric lens. But what is the Black standard of beauty? And I think that goes back to, well, who are we and how we express ourselves, right? Because now you got people, you got Black folks, and you can't judge a book by its cover. You got young Black girls wearing different colors. They could be conscious as hell. You know what I'm saying?
Purple hair, red hair, all of it. Yes.
They got long nails, but they know something about their struggle. They could tell you. They could tell you.
They got degrees and masters and doctorates. Absolutely.
And their doctorates, they're aspiring to be great people. To do great things for our people. So I think we have to, and I'm saying that for us as a people, for our culture, we have to say, okay, what is going to be the new rules on how we see each other outside of this Eurocentric lens? We all know that white people have played a huge part in how we see ourselves. We know that. It's been part of it. We all know, and you don't like my music. One of our online culture crew members, you don't like my music. He was like, Farajii, the fact that a lot of people have suffered from not feeling like they're worthy because not just Black people, but because media. And I agree with you. I think media has accentuated, I think media has exploited that feeling. What makes Hollywood so powerful is Hollywood, as much as it is to entertain, but Hollywood is also like a lab for science because they study human behavior. You have sociologists, you have psychologists. These aren't just writers, but they understand how human beings interact, how we think, how we behave. So they're able to put trends out, right? Or speak to a trend or exploit a trend, right? Accentuate it, exploit it in such a way that it will cause us to be like, oh, no, that's what I want. Oh, this is the new standard for something. Oh, in order for you to be deemed successful, you should have A, B, and C because they understand it. But I think we do need to get to a place now to say, you know what, bump all that. Mm-hmm. Here's what works best for us.
Right. There are two things as you were speaking that came to mind, and that is that when we are thinking about standards of beauty, we have to think first in terms of loving oneself and achieving self-acceptance, which again, as you have so eloquently kind of laid out there, in a culture that does not accept you just as you are, as you live, breathe, and walk, and just live your life, a culture where you have to be hypersensitive to how other people perceive you, from the moment you step out your door to when you get to your office, to when you go to places of public accommodation, et cetera, where you're always, especially, thinking about how do others see me? We have to go back to the very basic idea that one has to love themselves. The good book says you have to love your neighbor as yourself. But what I realized, a lot of people, especially within our communities, don't love themselves. If you love yourself, you wouldn't shoot your brother down in the street. You would see him as the same human being, having the same humanity, and deserving of the same life force that pervades and that lives within you. And the good that's in you is also in him. We have to go back to some basic self-esteem teachings within our communities, not only young, but as grown people are on these internets writing all kinds of stuff about other people. We have to really take a stock of, what do you really feel about yourself, sis, or my brother, that you will write something as crazy as you're writing on the internet and feeling like it gives you some degree of yourself. Exactly, of superiority, or like, I said that to her. The other part of what you just mentioned, that triggered something that came to mind, was that this is the first time in society, and I've talked about it on my YouTube, don't want to say it again, but when it comes to I've talked about in terms of dating, men seeing on social media tons and tons of, when I talk about heteronormative relationships, beautiful people all the darn time. Before the internet, you might have seen 2 or 3 good-looking people, if you will, in your whole village. So you didn't pick people based on being good-looking. You picked them because they were hard workers. You thought they could have some good kids. You think they could take care of, this division of labor the way we know it is only since the 1950s, where men only did this, women only did that. No, we all took care of the household and made sure we were good, right? So this idea that now, not only is it complicated by celebrity, where we are constantly being able to see lifestyles of the rich and famous every moment of the day on our phone, is giving us this kind of mass low self-esteem. A lot of people are having this FOMO, fear of missing out, or a deeper sense. That's why you feel depressed when you get off from scrolling for 2-3 hours, the way the apps are set up and have us all addicted, right? When we're looking at these people at what they have, and you think, I don't have that yet. Oh, they got the best marriage. Oh, they have the best. Most of that is fake anyway, because they're giving you the highlight reel, not the other 24 hours or 23 hours where, there's the struggle. So this idea of who we should be and what we should be is very much being curated daily to us. And we have to stop and we have to question, especially when it comes to young people with developing minds, but just as much for adults who are also still very much in this kind of formation of idea of self. We have to question, what am I intaking and how is it making me feel about myself?
And very quickly, Suzette, because we got to take another pause. But the other part is I want to go back to that point of what you say with just dating and just seeing women. You know, I see a ton of women on Instagram and other places, filters, using a ton of filters, right? And look,
Photoshop.
Look, the filters, you already beautiful. So you got this filter that it may not be a heavy filter. It might just highlight your cheekbones or might make your skin smoother or something like that.
Or it can give you a whole new face.
Or it can give you a whole damn new face. But you got all these filters and it's like, how is but then, you know, you can't have a bunch of filtered pictures and be like, I want something real. I want something authentic. I want you to come to me with your authentic self. Sis,
we don't love ourselves.
We can't be that. We can't be filtered and authentic at the same time. You got it. And I think that speaks to where we are. You talked about the self-love piece. It's like we take these same ideas, and I'm saying we as Black folks, men and women, not just in these intimate relationships, but just in general, we take these same ideas and then we impose them on each other. And then when we impose them on each other, it's like we weaponizing like this. We weaponize beauty to the point of I'm good looking, you're not as good looking, therefore I'm better than you.
It is,
and it's as DJ Khaled said, it breaks my heart. You know what I'm saying? Like
it's a lie, though. It's not even true beauty. Because your favorite superstar has to have airbrush pictures or somebody slapping makeup. Mariah Carey don't come on the stage without, 10 tons of everything, spray good, smell good, hair done, nails done, everything did.
Right.
This is a fantasy of what the standard that we're talking about, that, okay, if you don't have that, you're not worthy of love or acceptance or popularity or business or family or marriage. That we do that when people see other people's spouses and we're like, oh, how she got him. Maybe she's a good person. Maybe she has a good soul. Maybe she's a hard worker. Maybe she's with the program. So we have to be very careful. I agree with you in terms of weaponizing beauty against one another. But again, I want to track back to the source. Sis, my brother, what makes you feel like this in the first place? Is there, from our childhood, is it the public square? We have to really start to question and cut off anything that is influencing you to think that you are less than, or having you make you feel indirectly like you're less than, and that other people have to live up to this kind of, facade of quote unquote true beauty. None of it is true. Again, you're not going to change your hopefully you don't, but a lot of people do.
No, but it causes you to look at yourself in a very, very unhealthy way, in a very destructive way, where you feel like, again, you're not beautiful enough, you're not worthy enough, you're not desirable enough, that you have to add all of this other stuff. Because even after all of that, whether you're dating, whether you're married or whatever the case, when somebody sees you face to face, and if you ever had the opportunity to come across somebody that you actually follow on social media and you see them face to face, your expectations might go up, it might go down.
It's not real. It's not. We have to be putting on a show. It's not real.
And so it's like somebody pulling back the curtain at the end of The Wizard of Oz. You like, damn, you really
exactly. And you trying to live up to that person, and they're not real.
And it's not
this
real.
This is the whole mental game that's being played. Like, we are going to be these perfect human beings. Without the $1 million, you are not going to look like that. And the average person, I think we have to go back again to finding people's self-worth in who they are instead of what they look like. That, but in a Western culture, it's very difficult to do because we put so much into physical beauty and physical appearance, especially in America.
Absolutely. Look, folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's shift gears, because as we're talking about standard of beauty, let me just talk about what one lady is doing to just knock out just knocking things out the box. I'm talking about Ava Duvernay, the award-winning director of a number of great films, how she continues to push the boundaries for Black women creators in so many different spaces. And I'm going to share with you the great honor that has been bestowed on her. We'll talk about it and talk about this idea of conscious selling and conscious buying. Stay with us. That conversation is up next here on The Culture, right here on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen shots.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate Black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear. Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, for today's final conversation, I wanted to talk about a sister that is continuing to push the boundaries. This sister is an award-winning director. She has directed films such as Selma and in so many other great movies that I've truly loved. And I'm very, very excited to talk about the things that she's doing and, more importantly, the work she's doing and the impact that she's making. I'm speaking of award-winning director, filmmaker, Ava Duvernay. And let's bring my sister Suzette Speaks back into the frame. Sister Ava Duvernay, Suzette, I have never met Ava Duvernay. I would love to chat with her. I think as both of us as being hosts, you know how you got certain people, you'd be like, yo, I would love to have like a conversation. My people would be like Barack Obama. I just want to pick his brain.
Yes.
And you know what? Oprah Winfrey.
I'm about to say her BFF.
Yo, I really want to talk to Oprah. I really be wanting to talk to Oprah. But Ava Duvernay, who falls in that same circle, right? Because she has been able to do a number of, I think thought-provoking movies. The 13th, what was that? The documentary she did was
the 13th Amendment.
The 13th Amendment, talking about that.
Started her film career after 40.
I was going to get to that. See, this is why we vibing right now.
Yes,
because I think people need to know
that
she started quote unquote late.
Yeah.
To get into film and working in that passion, which I think is such an inspiring story. The other movie that I love, it was so hard to watch, but I absolutely think this is one of her best films, was When They See Us, about the exonerated five from that situation in the Central Park back in New York in the 80s. And one of the best movies. But more importantly, she continues to make an impact, right? She continues to do what I think she does best, which is inspire people. So it's no surprise that the ice cream maker, Ben & Jerry's, has decided to make Ava Duvernay the first Black woman to in their history to have her on the image of a Ben and Jerry's pint. Yep. Yeah, y'all see that? I don't know. In Ariel, if we can pull up, if you can find the picture of Ava Duvernay, she posted it on her IG where she was holding her new permanent brand, her new permanent flavor of coming from. I would like to have a Ben and Jerry's flavor.
I just like the name, Lights Caramel Action.
Lights Caramel and Action.
I love it. It is so apropos.
So this is going to be this ice cream. It features. I love how they describe ice cream. Check this out. I have to read it just like they describe it, because it makes me want it. It features an ensemble cast of vanilla ice cream, salted caramel swirls, graham cracker swirls, and gobs of chocolate chip cookie dough. Ice cream and almond milk-based non-dairy versions of the flavor will begin shipping across the country in January 2023.
Don't you just want some? I want that. And it's vegan. Almond milk.
Non-dairy?
But a lot lactose intolerant among us? Yes.
Non-dairy?
Everybody can do this. She did this one for the people. Yes.
Lights Caramel Action?
I can't wait to try it. I can't wait. Oh my goodness.
Oh, look at this. Look at this. There it is. Yo, black women on ice cream, son. Black women on ice cream. All right, so here's the thing. This is why I wanted to have this conversation with you, Suzette, because it's not just about her making history by being the first black woman on a Ben & Jerry's pint. It's also about something that I think that is very, very important, which is what I term it as conscious selling and conscious buying. Mm-hmm. I don't know if this phrase is going to catch wind, but I'm calling it conscious selling and conscious buying, because one of the things that Ava Duvernay mentioned in her, just in her statement once it became public, she said this, and I want to put a couple of quotes up on there. Let's put up quote number 2, Ariel and Keenan. Let's take a look. She said, ice cream is a simple joy of life, a comfort food that I've turned on to many days, making sunny ones brighter and darker ones sweeter. She said, partnering with Ben & Jerry's, a company I've long admired for their commitment to social justice, has been a thrill ride. I work with food scientists to create a flavor with all the ingredients I love for a cause close to my heart. Beyond being downright delicious, proceeds from Light Caramel Action will help Array Alliance, which is her organization, further its nonprofit mission of inclusion and belonging in the film and TV industries, a worthy and delicious endeavor. While the flavor is quite a mouthful, so is the intent of Ben & Jerry's on the importance of this partnership. According to Ben & Jerry in their statement, they said that framing this up as a new flavor for the first black woman to be a featured partner on our pints doesn't do Ava justice. This comes from Matthew McCarthy, the Ben & Jerry CEO. He said, we are humbled by this partnership, impressed by her work, sharing not only the struggle, but the joy in the justice, and we are inspired by her commitment and vision. So there is, I remember reading, Suzette, a briefing of a report that said that younger black women, the ages of about 25 to 40, they are more prone to support brands that they connect with beyond the price point, that they connect with brands based on their values, based on the brand's engagement with the community. And so I was thinking about this, and I was like, are we in this space of conscious buying and conscious selling? Because yesterday we had a conversation about Meg Thee Stallion. Major brands are now coming up to Meg, brands that probably wouldn't have hadn't batted an eye at a woman like a Meg Thee Stallion. Major brands, Nike and a lot of big brands, are looking at her as being their next spokesperson. But then you have a situation with like an Ava Duvernay. Ben & Jerry's is still big, but it's a different intent. It's not just about making money. It's also about putting an idea out there, putting causes out there, letting the proceeds go to things to help the community. So what's your take on this? Conscious buying, conscious selling, and the impact of that. Is this something that we really need to start doing? I'm saying across the board, men and women, families. Do we just need to start? Because I know we're in the Christmas season and stuff. Do we need to just start saying, you know what? If this brand does not fall in alignment with my values, with the things that are important to me, I can't support it. Is that possible to do?
I think it is. I think it has been talked about for quite some time, specifically within our culture, from civil rights and before, when we didn't have a choice of being able to shop on the quote unquote white side of town, when we couldn't buy certain things, or we had to make it for ourselves. We had to support ourselves, right? And it was a very big part of even Martin Luther King's movement when it came to conscious buying, as you're calling it. We are seeing the Zennials, which you've described across the board, but specifically among Black females, as you mentioned, to be able to spend their dollars in a way that emphasizes what I call value system alignment. Does this product, does the maker of this product align with the values I want to see promoted in this world? Do they recycle? Are they ecologically friendly? Do they donate back to our community? Do they give sort of, some of their profits? I don't know, the Girl Scouts, you name it. This new generation is very much aware of how they're spending their dollars and try to kind of point their monies not only to buying Black. That's another thing we can do to help support small business, because we know businesses run America, but no one teaches you how to run a business in America. But we can start to think a little bit more consciously, especially if you're outside of that demographic, about how are you spending your dollar. In other communities, dollars pass from hand to hand. People within members of that community 10, 20, 30, 50 times. When it comes to dollars in Black business hands and Black individuals, it doesn't stay within a Black business framework for very long. It oftentimes goes outside of our community, maybe come back once and twice, but etc. We have to really be thinking economically. These companies are not foolish. Our buying power as a collective in this country can make or break this economy. And when we realize that, and we are much more conscious about how we're spending that, and putting demands around, hey, we don't want to do business with you, Balance, can I say it? Or different companies. Yeah. If you're going to promote things that are not aligned with our values, that are seemingly hurtful to members of our community, to children, whoever it is, we have to maybe make our dollars speak much more loudly, because the voting booth is one way to be heard, but economically, them bus boycotts, thank you to our forefathers. Oh, they felt it. And again, there was also sacrifice to be made. What I also like about this here is that Ava Duvernay is symbolic of a different type of Black person. We walk in this country and through different walks of life in this country, and Black people are never, the monolith. We have the athlete. Oh my gosh, we know they're going to get endorsements. Nothing wrong with that. Shout out to our athletic heroes. But for someone who is somewhat of a more learned woman, right? Someone in the arts who is not a singer, a dancer, or performer, someone who is behind the camera, has a little bit more autonomy and decision-making as a director. I think it's amazing that someone like her was a choice by Ben & Jerry's. And again, nothing wrong with Meg Thee Stallion. Make your money, sis. I want to see you also win.
Right.
But this type of representation, I think, is really important, because I think even as we talked about in the election, the going away from the dignified Black kind of representation to us, I think, is not necessarily a win. And I think it can be also an insult, quite frankly, if you're not careful. So for them to have kind of made this more of a thoughtful choice, based on her work, once again, what has she done, right? And what has she produced, right? And what has the impact of her work been? Looking at someone holistically, again, away from beauty or sexual marketplace value, if you will, and those type of things that go along with the marketing. I think it was an excellent choice for them to make. I hope other corporate leaders are paying attention. And I would say oftentimes, we get less of this type of Black woman in the corporate space in terms of buying and selling and being a face of a product. I'd like to see more of her blueprint, if you will, now entering that conversation.
I agree. We got to take a quick pause, but let me tell you what, as Michelle, one of our online culture crew members, I got to see it real quick. We're going to do this. Suzette, I got to see your face to what Michelle said. She said, Farajii Muhammad, your Ben & Jerry flavor would be called funny laugh and cheesy grin.
Ah, that's sweet. I think that might actually rock.
I'm laughing. I'm cheesing right now.
With love, with that Wakandan love. I think she means
I got
well.
you, sis. I got you. Hey, look, I'm all for it. Ben & Jerry want to put me on a pint of ice cream. Hey, bro.
Today.
Michelle Ray, you will be one of the first buyers. And it better be good. And you better be laughing and cheesing when you eat it. Look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come back, more conversation. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair. Take your seat. The Black Tape. With me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
All right, folks, final few moments of today's show. Let's bring our sister Suzette Speaks back into it, talking about Ava Duvernay, conscious buying and conscious selling. I think this is so good for the culture. You made an excellent point saying that it's one thing to just make money off of your brand or off of marketing. It's another thing to make money off of the impact that you're making with your work. I think it's so good for the culture that, you know, and here's Ava is one of those sisters, like if Ava says something is good, you know,
I believe
it must be solid, right? You know what I'm saying? She's not going to sell you no wolf chickens.
No, she was a part of that process, I believe.
No, she said she worked with the food scientists.
Yes.
And they came up with this situation. But that's what I'm saying. Like, and it could be just a ploy from Ben & Jerry to say, look, maybe our Black market share is not as high as we want it to be. We need to look at something else, right? Because that could also be a motivation.
I think it could be a win-win, though.
It could be a win-win.
They could have picked another white guy to be on the front of their ice cream.
Oh yeah,
and the fact that this is their first is a huge deal. So sometimes we can't talk ourselves out of the deal, even though they win. Also, I think it's a win-win in terms of her branding, and again, maybe there are people in America who don't know who she is, right, and bringing light to, again, that type of prototype of Black woman. I'm down.
And you know what? And I think that, like I said, you know, during this holiday season, we really do. And as much as we are seeing some victories and some gains in this country, I don't want to let our foot up off the gas of what Dr. King called the redistribution of wealth, in terms of using that form of protest to bring attention from, you know, Wall Street, from Hollywood, to let them know, look, man, Black folks, we aren't just trends. We're not just gimmicky. We are real human beings. We have very real struggles, and our stories need to be told in a very respectful and specific way, right? And when we are talking about bringing the brand of whatever we do to the corporate space to create a campaign, it can't just be about money. There has to be something deeper. And I know without a shadow of a doubt, Suzette, and I'm sure you've seen this as a Black woman, I've said this before, Black women are trending right now, right? Having a Black woman.
We create trends for the world.
Look,
Black women in America create worldwide trends every day. This is what we do.
First thing, why you had to come out and bring Liberty City, Miami, Florida out at you?
Let me let y'all know.
Y'all saw how you
let y'all know.
That just was like, she was real calm and cool. Then she was like, let me tell you something, Farajii. Let me tell you something. This is how we do down in Miami.
We don't get credit for it though. That's why I have to stand up and make sure I pull it out there. Let's just let you see for real who is making from beauty to all kinds of cultural impacts. It's us here from the United States.
No doubt.
Across culture, having influence worldwide. Just want to say that. Sorry.
No, that's that, and that's what I'm saying. And again, as we heard about Meg, and again, this is not no shade on Meg because she's in a different space. She's an entertainer, but Ava Duvernay is a filmmaker. She creates different content for us to consume. So I think it's great that we do have a balance.
We need the balance.
We need the balance, especially
a lot of Meg. We're going to see a lot
black
of women who are, again, not compromising, but I would call it more so their brand is different, right?
Right, absolutely.
They're selling a different product, so therefore there's a lot more edgy, a lot more sexy, a lot more, appealing to, a different type of audience. You can't deny that Ava Duvernay is a serious woman who, takes culture, education, and her art very seriously. So the word you use, I think, is really important, is balance. We get a lot of the entertainer type, pushed out there, marketing. Shout out to people like, Sweetie. I see her in ads now. It's not bad. But again, balance. There is a different kind of seriousness given to, when we are validating a brand through someone like an Ava Duvernay, right? They're giving us some of their market share and we're giving also some of ours. So I think there's an exchange there. So we can't say, oh, this is all corporate. People that don't want any progress at all. No, everybody got to make money. It's America, right? So shout out to her. But shout out to them for also making a very smart business decision, and the type of person that they chose, I thought was very, very wise. And maybe there'll be other companies that will follow suit. There
it is. Suzette, we got to end it right there just for the sake of time. But this has been so much fun. Really quick, Suzette, what how can people check you out?
Oh, yes, please. Y'all check out my YouTube channel. I have a budding YouTube channel talking about everything. Even today, I'm at 5:45. I'll be live talking about what happened in Georgia. But yeah, check me out. My name's Suzette Speaks on all platforms. If you wouldn't mind going over to my YouTube channel and hit the subscribe button, I will welcome you to my community of conversations as well. And I hope you guys will support. It's always a joy. And thank you, Farajii, for having me.
Absolutely. It's always a joy to have you on, Suzette. I truly, truly appreciate you. And I'm thank you more importantly for the work that you do, the woman that you are, and the perspectives you represent. So thank you just being so good for the culture, Suzette. Truly appreciate
that. That's coming from you, brother. I really, really do. Thank you guys. No, everybody watching, lots of love from my MIA.
There it is. There it is. Suzette Speaks checks in with us every Wednesday here on The Culture. Thank you, Suzette.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, folks, that's going to do it for me. I thank each and every one of you for joining us today. I want to thank my fantastic team. I want to thank Suzette, and I can't thank you enough for joining us. Make sure y'all support us, blackstarnetwork.com. Check us out online. Make sure y'all follow us on social media, Black Star Network. Man, look, it's all on there. We're streaming dope content. We got the Blackities Black election show coverage that from last night and so much more. So make sure y'all check us out at blackstarnetwork.com. Also, make sure you follow me, yours truly, on social media at Farajii on Twitter, The Real Farajii on IG, and let's continue to build the movement. All right, that's going to do it for me. Up next is Brother Roland Martin with RMU. He's still rocking and rolling. I'm sure he's probably down in Georgia. You never know what Brother Roland is. So make sure y'all check out RMU. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we will talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Have a great afternoon and evening, everyone. Peace.